When was the last time you felt inspired? Are you ready to take your passions to make a difference while living a life you truly love? Your host, Katana Abbott, who is a life and legacy wealth coach and certified financial planner, searches the world to bring you experts in the field of personal and professional growth, wealth creation, and mind, body, and spirit. So grab a cup of coffee and take that quantum leap you've been waiting for. Smart Women Talk Radio, the link to live with purpose, passion, and prosperity.
Hello, everyone. It's Chris Freer. I'm so happy to be with you. You might remember me because Katana and I have done several shows together. And lucky Katana, she is traveling today. So she asked me just to step in. And I cannot tell you how thrilled I am to be back. And I just want to welcome you all to Smart Women Talk, where we search the world for smart women and, of course, a few good men, including best-selling authors, thought leaders, and change agents who are on the leading edge. Our topics include money, business, health, inspiration, and the metaphysical. And today is no different. We have a wonderful author. I'm so excited to introduce you to Tracy McCubbin. And today we're going to be talking about something that most of you are probably doing right now with a new year, and that is decluttering. And today, Tracy and I are going to go deep, and I'm so excited about this because she and I have a lot in common that we're also going to be discussing. So we're going to be covering why we have emotional attachments to items and this clutter that gets into our space. So how does it get there? How do we get rid of it? What are our cluttering stumbling blocks? How do we get rid of them? And then Tracy's going to give us some wonderful tips on how to break these things down step by step and get rid of the clutter for good, which excites me greatly because I have a business, 3 children, and 2 pets. So I have a lot of clutter, including my husband. And so in a moment, we're going to go into our deep dive with Tracy. But first, I wanted to share a couple of real life smart women tips that have served me well in terms of decluttering. And I think when we think about cluttering, we have both emotional clutter and, of course, we have the things. So I have 2 real world tips for organizing that cost less than $5. One was a lifesaver for me when my children were younger. We had socks everywhere, and we also had single socks everywhere. And I read an interesting study that the average man over the course of his life spends 1 complete month just looking for socks. So, we've got this stuff all over the place. So how do we organize it? And I found these great little items. You can get them on Amazon under $5. They're called sock locks. And you can put your socks together before they go into the wash. You'll never lose a sock again. So all the men listening today can get a month of their life back if they follow that little tip. And then my free tip of the day is something that I started doing about 4 years ago. And that is at the beginning of each clothing season, turn your hangers one direction, either towards you or facing against your wall, whichever one. And then as you wash that outfit or dry clean it and bring it back, flip the hanger the other way. That's a really good visual to show you what you're actually wearing, because oftentimes what we think we're doing is not true. And then to wrap up our tip today, there are 3 things that I really look at in my own life, and I try not to bring things into my space by focusing on my thoughts, but not the thing. So I asked myself, why am I bringing this into my space? And how is it going to serve me? And if I can't get good answers there, I don't even bring it in. The second thing that I have to say to my husband all the time, because he has ADHD, and I get calls from all over the city that he's left things places, I always say, don't put things someplace, put them in the same place. So if you do that simple little tip, that will help you greatly. And then our final Smart Women tip today is just when you look in your space, and not just the things, but even in all of your relationships, they can become cluttered as well, which Tracy and I will be talking about. But just ask yourself, does this give me energy or is this taking my energy? And if it's taking your energy, you need to get rid of it. So those are my tips that have helped me greatly. I hope you find a little bit of wisdom in them and you can apply them in your life. And so without further ado, here's the fabulous Tracy McCubbin, and she's going to share some secrets to decluttering. And I want to tell you a little bit about Tracy before I bring her on the line. Tracy is such an interesting expert because she's lived it. She's the child of a hoarder. So she knew firsthand the grip that our stuff can have on people and how very real the impact is. And in 2007, while she was working as an assistant for a major TV director, she discovered that she had this awesome sense to see through any mess, which is like a superpower in my book. 10 years later, her company, dClutterfly, is LA's #1 home organization company, which is not a small feat. And she has wonderful celebrity clients like Romano and Mindy Kaling of the Mindy Project. And she also has helped countless producers, directors, and executives. And she has a fabulous book. I encourage you to check it out. The title is Making Space Clutter-free, the last book of decluttering you'll ever need. And I love that it's the last tool we need. And it's going to reveal and go deep on the 7 emotional blocks we have in regard to the mess in our lives. So without any hesitation, here's Tracy. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Chris. I'm so excited to talk to you. And I have to say, I absolutely loved your tips. And I'm going to take that sock tip one step further, because here's what a bunch of my clients do for their husbands, particularly, and sons, and also daughters who play a lot of sports. They buy them the exact same kind of sock. So they only buy them one kind of sock. So it's no worry about matching. And that one has been a game changer. That's
my God.
And especially, if you have kids that are play soccer or going to school, if they don't have to wear dress socks very often, if they're just wearing those white athletic socks, if you get the same sock, then it's just a drawer full of socks and it doesn't matter about matching them up or losing them.
I love that. Thank you so much.
You're going to go home and your husband, you're going to get rid of all of his socks. And you're like, honey, you get this one kind and that's it.
Yes. Yeah. And you know what's super weird too is this is something maybe we need to talk about what his block might be. He has a bit of a sock fetish. Mm-hmm. I'm not kidding, Tracy. He'll come home with these new socks all the time. And I'm like, what's with the socks? And then, like I said, they're always mismatched and we can never find them. And it's a bit of a joke. So that's why we had to go to the sock lock. But I'm just going to clear them all out and start over, because that's what.
Well, I bet I wonder if in his head, he sort of, because he knows that he misplaces socks or it gets down to mismatched socks. So in his mind, I wonder if he's always sort of thinking, I need new socks because my socks never match. I need new socks. My socks never match.
Yes. Yes. And I think, that goes to the heart of what you discuss in your book. And that is that so many of these things are emotionally based. And I mean, I think there are a lot of great tips in the real world, like putting things in containers and organizing. But I am so interested to know your thoughts on, why are people so affected by all this clutter? And I mean, how do we get so much to begin with?
Oh, wow. That's such a great question. I mean, the first place that I always like to start with people, and this is, it sort of sounds revolutionary, but it's really not, is we have to remember that when stuff has no meaning, right? Inherently, it has no meaning. It's just an inanimate object. So any meaning that it gets, we imbibe on it. We put it on top. So we go, this teapot, means so much to me because my grandmother gave it to me. Yes, that's true. But if your grandmother hadn't given it to you, that same teapot would be another teapot. So I think people aren't aware of the power that they give their stuff.
Yes.
So when we start there, it kind of shifts everything. right? All of a sudden you say, oh, I can't possibly get rid of Christmas just happened, right? Hanukkah and Christmas just happened. So we all got gifts and you think, oh, I can't possibly get rid of that. So-and-so gave it to me. Well, you're giving that thing, that candle you like the smell of, or the sweater that itches that a dear friend gave you, you're giving it all this power over you. Oh, I can't let go of it because that person gave it to me. It's like, well, it's a sweater you don't like. You're never going to wear. It takes up room in your drawer. So it sort of defeats the purpose of the gift, right? The person was giving you this gift to, make you feel pretty or show their affection for you, but you've now made the meaning that it's clutter to you. So I think people forget or aren't aware at all of the power they have in this situation.
Yes. And so when you work with, obviously you have a lot of very high level, extremely intelligent, well-educated people that you help. So, I mean, they obviously have been able to manage many parts of their lives extremely successful. What's the thing that they all have in common that you see that all of them have, regardless of, education, background, what they're doing?
Absolutely. What we all have in common in this country, I mean, I call it a clutter crisis, is the overwhelming amount of stuff. It's just, all of us are facing, it's so easy to shop now, right? You don't even have to leave your house. You just click on Amazon, you just click a button and ding, ding. So everyone is just, we're kind of collapsing under the sheer weight of stuff. And also now stuff has gotten really inexpensive. In the turn of the century or the last century, that's how old I am, it was, you bought a dress and it was a significant investment, or a pair of shoes. And now you're like, well, I can go to H&M and I can get a dress for $4 on sale. So the cheap consumer goods have just fed. So we're all burdened with the amount of stuff that's coming at us, the amount of stuff that's easy to buy. It's a crisis. It's an epidemic. There was a very interesting article in the New York Times, I believe yesterday, and I can send it to you and we can share it with your listeners, about the science of clutter and how it dramatically increases our stress. I've been seeing it for 12 years that I've had my business, and it's really great that now I'm seeing that my antidotal is actually scientific, but stress, high levels of clutter in people's homes raises cortisol in women, which is directly correlated to stress and weight gain around the tummy, which is like, really? I got that too?
Yes. Yes.
You're just working against me, aren't you? But we are fighting a good fight. And you brought something up earlier. Clients say to me all the time, like, how did it get like this? Like, I didn't used to be this way. And I think there's a couple things. I think it got this way because we bring the stuff into our house, right? Yes. We buy it online or we carry it in. So we're part of the problem. I also weirdly think that streaming television, so, 20 years ago, you came home and people are going to know how old I am. You come home and you go, oh, MASH is on tonight. I want to watch my episode of MASH. To be fair, I was a kid, but you knew it came on at 8:00. So you came home from work at 6 and you thought, okay, well, I'm going to eat dinner. And then I have a half an hour before my show comes on to tidy up.
We had schedules then.
Yeah, to neaten up the house. Now you come home and you're like, I can watch whatever I want when I want to watch it. So that sort of blocked out time, after dinner or before you eat dinner where you could neaten up your house. It doesn't exist anymore. And I'm really seeing people struggling with finding the time to kind of stay on top of stuff. Right? Yes. Like clutter it's like dieting. You have to stay on top of it. And if you don't make the time, it just starts to build up again. And I really think that scheduling it in has something to do with it.
Do you ask your clients to do something daily about clutter?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Especially with kids, especially with kids. I mean, I was just with my brother and sister-in-law and they have little ones. And man, the struggle is real. Wow, those playrooms. I mean,
No.
and I think, yeah, you know, and I think I've been talking to my mom clients and, you know, I think you need at the end of every day after the kids go to bed, at least a half an hour to put that playroom back together. But if you don't do it every day, I'm looking at my desk/dining room table right now and like, oh yeah, I need about a good 20 minutes. Like there's mail I need to shred. I just have been super busy the last 3 days and haven't kind of done it. So daily, daily is a real key. I think it's almost daily and then a sort of chunk weekly,
Yes.
like, oh, here's an hour to do it. Let me put the laundry away. But yeah, I think it's funny. I kind of want to get back to the idea of chores.
Yes.
Daily chores, like last year I read an article about successful people make their bed every morning. And I was like, what?
Yes.
That's so silly. I'm going to try that. That's silly. I wrote and published a book in a year. All these crazy things I accomplished. And last year was the first year I made my bed every single day. And what they say is that you set yourself up for a successful day because the first task that you put for yourself, you accomplish.
That's true. I've heard that too. I've heard that our to-do lists in America are way too long. Like, don't ever put 10 things because it's ridiculous. You're never going to accomplish them. You're only even going to get to maybe the first 3. Is the same true then for our spaces? Do we just say, like, for example, you were saying, like, with moms, they have, their clutter. Some of us, I think you and I are around the same age where, we're that sandwich generation because, like, Thursday I'm going to see my mom at assisted living. And so I have to drive to do that. So I have to be gone away from the home. In the meantime, the 3 kids, I'm just telling you, there's going to be havoc. So I'm going to come home, and oftentimes I'm embarrassed to say this, but I don't like to leave a messy kitchen at night. But I am cleaning my house at midnight. And I know out of all of our listeners, I can't be the only one. I'm always loading the dishwasher at midnight. So some of that, so I'm not sure.
But the upside of that is, that loading that dishwasher at midnight, waking up the next morning to a sink full of dishes just, sets your day off in the wrong. So it's about, it's about time management. It's about kind of staying on top of it. I think it's also, I don't have kids, so I only have myself to blame when there are dishes in the sink. But I think also as the kids, I'm seeing more and more with my clients, as the kids are getting older, like, what are the responsibilities that they can, take over? Can they clear the table? Like, can you're a family of 5. The dogs can't do anything, but you haven't trained them yet. But what can you start to share the responsibility with to stay on top of the clutter? And I think also, Chris, it's important to remember there's daily clutter, the dishes, the putting the clothes in the laundry basket, in the bed, and then there's the bigger clutter. There's the guest room that you can't use as a guest room because it's so full of stuff that you've just not known what to do with. There's a closet you can't open. There's a garage you can't park your car in, right? That's the sort of bigger looming clutter. And I see if you have those scenarios, right, then I tend to see the everyday clutter in the house too. As if you're like, let's say you're a family of 5. So let's say you shop at Costco and you go and buy toilet paper and paper towels. And in a perfect world, you'd be like, oh, I have this shelf in my garage. I put my back stock of paper goods here. But because your garage is so full, the royal you is so full of everything, it can't go in there. So then it goes on the top of the washer in the laundry room. And then it's this cascading effect. So I think that people don't realize how much their useful storage spaces, how having those cluttered and those filled spill out onto their everyday surfaces. That makes sense?
So what you're saying, if I'm understanding correctly, is you should have a designated space for everything. If that space starts to overflow, then you need to rethink what you're bringing into it. And you need to look more at your why, which is what I love about what you're talking about is that you've identified that I think it was 7 emotional blocks that we have with clutter.
Yes.
And so are the blocks what create the clutter, or are you saying these are the blocks that occur after the clutter is there?
Well, that's funny. That's interesting. No one's ever asked me that. I mean, they're definitely they're what create the clutter. So they either are, the reasons of why you bring the stuff in,
yes,
but really why you can't let it go. When you're like, oh, I know I don't ever I don't ever use this. I mean, a perfect, one of the clutter blocks is what I like to call, I'm not wearing my good stuff, right? People not using their really nice things. Well, that's my fancy stuff. I'm saving that for a special occasion. It's like, well, what's more special than you?
Yes,
I see this all the time with, it's interesting. I see it all the time with China, right? My grandmother's China, I can't use it. It's too nice to use. For what? For when? We don't set a formal table anymore. And then I have a whole generation of my younger clients that are like, oh yeah, I use my grandma's silver flatware every day. I put it in the dishwasher. I mean, what are you going to, why not use it? So It's sort of this, it's just interesting that that's kind of one example that we have this idea, we used to live a much more formal life. We don't do that so much anymore. So why not use your grandma's china every day?
And that makes perfect sense. So that's the emotion surrounding it. Like you began talking at the beginning of the interview, you mentioned that, people assign the emotions, but the event or the thing is just a thing or an event. So it's what they're attaching. Okay.
Exactly. What they're attaching. And also remember this. This is a great conversation. Remember that most of the inanimate objects, the things in our life are really tools, right? A glass is a tool to drink a glass of water. A dining room table is to eat. I had a conversation with a client and she had this dining room, breakfast room table, and she was downsizing and she said, oh, but I want to try and sell it. And I was like, okay, but it's from about 1982. So I don't, and she's like, I paid a lot of money for it. And I said, okay, how much did you pay? She said about $1,000. And I said, well, in 1982, that was, that's still a lot, but you've been eating breakfast on it every morning since 1982. So I think you've gotten your money's worth, but, and she said, I just can't let go of it, but it doesn't fit in my new house, but I just can't let go of it. I said, well, what's that? What? And she said, well, I just watched my kids grow up at this table. And I was like, right.
There you go.
It was the passage of time. It was the memories, it was looking at that table and watching her kids get ready to eat and head out to their first days of a new school year. And then now the grandkids are there. And when she was able to identify what it sparked in her, we found another way. She was moving to senior living. And another way to keep those memories alive. It's like, well, let's do a gallery wall in your new place that has different eras of your kid's childhood, so you can remember that way.
Oh, and so you can capture. You help your clients. Well, you're helping me as well, because I'm sitting in an office right now. No joke. I have a $4,000 setup. But it's the old hutch. I mean, it's still very beautiful, but it was when all the old world stuff was in. And we want to redo my office. And this thing is a behemoth. And you just described, it's almost like you're spying on my life, Tracy, because I'm sitting here with this $4,000 thing, right? And my husband literally said today, because we got our carpets clean, we had to move a bunch of stuff out. He said, honey, we may just have to give this away. And it was so hard. I was like, well, I can do it on eBay. And he's like, really? I mean, you want to pay for freight? You're going to pay more for the freight to get, so you're exactly right. Even those of us that try to be so self-aware, I mean, I'm doing it right now. I'm sitting at this desk I don't want to be sitting at. I'm ready for new. So that is certainly a block I'm dealing with. Like, what are the other 6 blocks that other people are dealing with?
Well, first of all, I want everybody to buy the book. I'm not going to give them all away, but
we'll just give them a little taste.
Yeah. I mean, I think definitely, well, the one you brought up is what I like to call the stuff I keep paying for. It's sort of this idea of, well, I paid a lot of money for it, so I can't get rid of it. And the example I always love to give is, I can't tell you, I mean, hundreds and hundreds. I go into clients' bedrooms and they have a giant treadmill in the middle of their bedroom. And I'm like, that's taking up a lot of space. And they're like, oh, I can't get rid of that. First of all, it was expensive. And second of all, I use it every day. And I go, oh, you use it every day? And they go, yes, to hang my clothes on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes. Boy.
So it's that sort of, it's that idea of, well, I paid so much money for it, but I don't use it, but it just was so expensive. And there's a lot of things in our lives where I just say, you know what? You got to put your big girl pants on, and you got to accept that you maybe made a mistake. Maybe you overpaid for something, and holding on to it is not going to, make you that money back.
Yes.
And it's a tough pill to swallow.
Oh, I'm sure you have to go in, do you not, with a box of tissues because it is, people think organization is putting something in a container. And I think that's part of it, but all you're doing is containing your stuff. I'd like to learn how to not bring all this stuff in. Like, why do I think I need, another black top? I'm not kidding you. I just ordered 4 black tops.
Yeah. That's why I tell people I don't say I'm an organizer. I actually say I'm a professional declutterer, because I'm like, why even start organizing and deal with the amount of stuff
stuff. So what's that first step for?
Well, I think the first step is a shift in consciousness.
Yes.
So this is a perfect example. You just ordered 4 black tops, right? And I'm sure you said to yourself, the sale emails are bing, bing, bing in your inbox, and said, oh, I need that.
Yes.
First off,
they're beautiful.
And look, beautiful. I am, it's me. I'm flirting with a pair of boots, and I are having a flirtatious online relationship right now. I haven't committed, but the first thing I tell my clients is, you don't need those black blouses. You want them. Yes, just change language. True. Just change your language. I want them. And then once you start going that, where you're like, oh, and then it's taking stock of what you already have. Like, I did it the other day in a store. I tried on a beautiful black silk blouse, and I was like, oh, this is so cute. It reminds me of this blouse I already have hanging in my closet. So it's really an awareness and then also like, what's the shopping about, right? Are you, I'm sort of nervously shopping because I've got a big trip to New York coming up, and I'm having, some meetings and some things, and I'm having some nerves around the trip. So I am obsessing about the perfect, snow boots. And I'm like, oh, this isn't about the snow boots. Like, I'm going to find a pair of snow boots and they'll be cute and fine. But I've got nerves about the trip. There's some big meetings and there's stuff going on. So I had to all of a sudden I saw my, my shopping cart online. I was like, oh, I've got 5 pairs of boots in my Nordstrom shopping cart. What's really going on? So it's looking at those little markers, right? Mm-hmm. Like how many times a day has the UPS guy come with packages from Amazon? What are the things to make you look at that? And I think that it's a matter of, it's twofold, Chris. It's a matter of looking at how much you're bringing in, but then it's also looking at how much you have. Really, one of the reasons I tell people, first, it makes getting dressed so easy, but color coordinating and categorizing your closet, putting like with like in your closet it's going to show you how much you have.
Yeah.
And it's
so when you
really
say
powerful.
Do you mean like all your sweaters together?
Yep.
And then all your button downs together? Okay.
Yep.
Love that.
So tops with tops, skirts with skirts, pants with pants. And, I really encourage people short with short sleeve, long sleeve with long sleeve, and when you see it together, you're like, wow, that is a lot of, but, and then in the morning when you're like, here's all my blue, and I think it's a matter of, that's why when I start to work with a client, the first thing that we do is, we're going to start on a guest room or a closet. We pull everything out of that area and we put like with like. So then you can say like, here's how many, I don't know,
black shirts.
Yeah, black shirts. Exactly. Here's how many black shirts you have. Because the other thing you have to remember that people don't realize, and this is a bit of the science behind decluttering, is so when people are multitaskers, good at multitasking, what they're really good at, sequencing back and forth between tasks. So they're not really doing 4 things at once. They're just sequencing back and forth very quickly. And that is very exhausting. And that leads to what people call decision fatigue. So when you make a lot of decisions, you get really tired. It's why when you wake up in the morning and you're refreshed and you go, today is going to be a broccoli and steamed chicken kind of day. And then by, 11 o'clock at night, you're like, why am I eating this pepperoni pizza?
Yes. Where did those Doritos come from?
Exactly. You made hard decisions all day. So by multitasking, sequencing back and forth, you're making a bunch of hard decisions. So when we declutter, we get like with like. And you're standing in front, looking at all of your black blouses. You go, oh, wow, this is how many I really have. These 10 I haven't worn in 2 years. These 5 I wear, it makes the process so much easier on yourself.
Yes. And isn't it interesting? I'm sure you see it, how we deceive ourselves. Like until I started flipping my own hangers back and forth, like my husband would say, you've got 20 pairs of jeans. And I'm like, yeah, but I need the bloating, the non-bloating, the perimenopausal, the premenopausal, the menopause, I've got all these different jeans, right? I keep thinking I'm going back to these others, which is not been successful. But I didn't know, I was like I was justifying so much in my own head that until I did that physical thing in the world, flipping that hanger, that showed me, okay, you're not wearing this. You're saying you're wearing it, and you actually sadly believe you're wearing them. But, if you can't get them on, you're not wearing them.
I've done the hanger trick on myself. It's fascinating.
It is.
You're like, wow. They say you wear 80% of your clothes, 20%, the inverse. You wear 20% of your clothes, 80% of the time. And I really think that, I believe it too.
It's so true. You have a fascinating theory that I wanted to touch on is, so we talked a little bit about like clutter, but you have this idea that clutter begins 3 steps back. Mm-hmm. So
go ahead.
That's 3 steps back from the clutter itself. So
that's what I was talking about, like in terms of the garage, right? So I'll go into somebody's house and we'll go into their laundry room. And I'll see, the toilet paper and paper towels and the extra thing of laundry soap on top of the dryer. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, why is this not in the cupboard above the laundry? And then you open that and that's full of, old Bon-Ami and bartender friend and cleaning supplies that, and mismatched socks that we can't let go of. And I'm like, okay, well, shouldn't these cleaning supplies that you use less, shouldn't these be on a shelf in the garage because you're only maybe grabbing them a couple of times a year? And my client will say, oh no, don't open the garage. Oh no, don't go in there. Right. So because the garage is so full of stuff that you haven't used in years, the stuff that you only use twice a year can't live in the garage. Therefore, the stuff that you need to have daily can't live in the cupboard. So it lives on top of the dryer, right? So we're 3 steps backwards. So our storage, what I like to call cold storage, is so full that it's creeping out onto everywhere. I've got bills, not me, but clients, they'll have bills stacked up on their kitchen counter. And I'm like, well, you have to cook here. Like, why are the bills not on your desk? And then we walk over to the desk and the desk is piled high with paperwork that hasn't been filed or shredded from last year. I'm like, oh, well, why isn't this stuff, if you need to keep this paperwork, why isn't it in your files? We open their files and it's got, like a Bullock's bill from 1984.
Yes.
And so it's the 3 steps back.
What's so interesting, I read and I shared with our audience members that, you had a parent who was a hoarder. Mm-hmm. And I was adopted into a family with 2 people who were hoarders, although they were different kinds of hoarders. They sort of hoarded for different reasons. One thought he was a collector. And the other was a compulsive shopper that got overwhelmed with the collecting. So they had a bit of a blame game going on. But what was interesting is when I had to go in and clear out their house, I mean, the things I found, it was including something that looked like it was growing on the inside of a cave. I mean, there was so much mold, and it was behind a piece of furniture that nobody had seen for, who even knows how long. Because the hoarding had gotten so bad, I maintained a wonderful relationship with my parents, but they always came to my home, and we were not permitted to go in until the time, when my father passed. So that's how we got into the house. So sadly, the entire house had to be demolished. We couldn't even save it, and it was on the National Register. So that's a personal story. But one of the things you talked about is, we talked about cortisol. I mean, we lost tens of thousands of dollars in property that could have been worth something that was, like they didn't even have anything to leave their kids because of. So I wanted to have you as the expert talk a little bit about the devastation that this can cause. When it goes much deeper than just, a container and my sock locks.
Yeah. I mean, and I think, I always want to point out to people that while I have my personal experience, I'm not a psychologist, and the book is written for, and the majority of my clients, we're dealing with everyday clutter, right?
Yes.
And I hear people, it's always a little difficult for me. I hear people say, "Oh, I'm being such a hoarder today." And I'm like, "Oh, well, not really." Like that's, hoarding is a very severe mental disorder, right?
Yes.
They're sort of evaluating it and thinking now it's more an anxiety. It's an anxiety issue. And there are great resources out there for people who feel that they are a hoarder, or that someone in their family is. An amazing doctor named Dr. David Tolin, Tolin. He has a book called Buried in Treasures. And it's one of the best books I've read, really help you figure out, I'm just kind of dealing with garden variety clutter. Or, this is actually really, really a psychological issue. So I would say to anybody who is worried about themselves or someone in their family to look at that book. But it's a lot. I feel you. And if you are dealing with a family member, it's frustrating. It's so frustrating. And they feel so much shame around it. Yes. And I think they get to a point where they don't even know how to, even if they wanted to, they don't know how to get it around, to turn that boat around. And it's tough. And, you brought up something interesting where you said, the house had to be demolished and you lost, tens of thousands of dollars. The thing I always tell people is the thing you have to remember about stuff is that you keep paying for it, right? We think, I bought it once and that's all I paid for it. And what I say is, well, but you've got to pay to store it. Especially like, let's say, your house has value. So if you have a room you can't use that's using a storage room, that's a part of your house you're paying for but can't use. Or if you have an outside storage unit, I know what you're paying for those a month.
Yes.
So you're paying to store it. You've got to pay to upkeep things. You've got to pay to repair things when they break. And then when you don't want anymore, you got to pay somebody to take them away. So, stuff has an ongoing cost. And especially, can't tell you how many garages I've been in of clients who are, not hoarders at all. And was so full and didn't realize there's a leak. And, half of the garage, we've got to fix the roof. And then everything in the garage is covered in black mold. and they've just got to throw it all away. And that's really
Yes.
a tough place to be. So I always invite people to sort of remember that once you've paid for something, it doesn't necessarily mean you don't stop paying for it.
That's a great way to frame it. And I was curious because I mean, obviously I shared a little of my experience with you, but I, even having gone through it and I learned so much, I didn't feel compelled to really write about it, but you did. So what was your inspiration behind your new book?
It was 12 years of working with thousands of clients. Like I love my job. I love my clients. I feel so lucky that every day I get to wake up and do what I love to do. But I just kept seeing people being up against the same thing. I was like, oh, this has come up again. You feel guilty that, that you paid so much money for it. This is that same thing. And I just really, and I was like, I know how many people I have helped. I know how many phone calls or text messages I've gotten where people have said, oh my gosh, we've been able to, we were able to have at the dining room table tonight, or I had to get dressed this morning and I got dressed. I picked out my outfit in under 5 minutes. Like, it's really simple and not hard work, but changes that made people's lives run so much smoother. That's what I want. I want your life to run smoother. I want you to spend less time moving your stuff around and chasing your stuff. I want you to enjoy it, to feel happy and stress-free in your home. And so when I was seeing these similarities, these clutter blocks, I was like, I think I can help more people. I think I can frame this in a way that's going to make sense to everybody.
Oh, and I think, to your point initially is our problem has gotten so far out of control. And I was curious to know, do you feel that social media and, like the Instagram fame of the world is dry, because I know my daughter for a while had a blog and she was considering going into fashion. And I know that she has more clothes than you can't even imagine. And yet she was going into my closet, and it was interesting. I would see my clothes show up in her blog. Thought that was kind of interesting. I'm like, wait, that's my purse, and those are my shoes. But she was like, Mom, you have to have a different look. So if you start to think, some of these girls post daily.
Yeah.
And so they want their little outfit for each one. Are you seeing I guess you've been doing this 12 years, are you seeing it getting progressively worse from when you started?
I'm definitely seeing people have more stuff. Definitely. And also what I'm seeing is this, I like to call it specifically like the perfect pantry posts. Those women that have the pantry, not women, men too, but the pantries where everything matches and they only have one kind of hot sauce and it's all chalkboard labels. And I'm like, well, let me just say this. The clients that I have that have a pantry that look like that, have someone who that's their full-time job. I'm not joking.
Yes.
Like a pantry like that is aspirational. And of course we love looking at it, but what I'm seeing is people wanting to have that, kind of buying all the stuff, the bins and the things, and then honestly not having the time to put into it. So I have seen the toll that social media is taking. Look, here's what I say this all the time. The easiest way to be organized is to have less stuff. I
love it. That's the root.
That's the root. It's super simple. Think about when you travel, Chris. Like you go on a 10-day trip and you take one suitcase and a carry-on, and you don't think about what you have at home. You're like, oh, okay, well, I'll make this outfit. And if somebody sees this pair of shorts 3 days in a row, well, that's what they see. No one's noticing. So I really, I just helped. It was actually great. I helped Patricia Heaton, who's a client of mine. She did a big declutter on her closet, and she put a lot of her beautiful designer stuff up for sale and raised money for World Vision, which is a fantastic organization that's very dear to her heart. And she had come back. She'd been on a 2-week trip to Ireland. She was like, I was in a little car. I had a little suitcase. I've never been happier. Like I didn't miss anything. She was like, I'm not going to wear these dresses again. Like, what are they doing? What am I saving them for? And so we did an auction on the Real Real and she raised a lot of money. And I thought that was such an interesting way. She was like, it was so nice to wake up in the morning and just put, black pants and the white blouse and a pretty scarf. And off I went on my day. And so I think that that's rude. It's really about having less stuff.
Yes. And the freedom that that just felt like a breath of fresh air to me when you were saying, your life will run smoother. You can get ready faster. You can get to the people you love faster. I read, and I'm sure you've seen it, but there was a study done recently. It was through iPhone users and they were just surveying habits. And it was saying like 60% of people have been late to work or an important event because they couldn't find something. And the reason they can't find something is because they've got too much and they don't have a system.
Yeah.
And so we talked a little bit about having the too much. Like, what are some of the systems that you implement?
I think I forget what I always tell you had a different version of it, but I always say, don't put it down, put it away. And, in a place for everything and everything in its place. Like we all know that milk goes in the refrigerator, right? It's milk unless it goes in the refrigerator. So you're never going like, where's the milk? You go to the refrigerator. Well, you can apply that to your keys always the same place. Your cell phone charges in the same place. That if a place for everything and everything in its place. And look, sometimes I was just working with a client who keeps the blow dryer in like a very pretty desk in the hallway. And I was like, well, that's kind of weird. And she goes, actually, it's not, because this is the plug right here. And so as my daughter's coming out of the bathroom, getting ready to put her pajamas on, like putting her pajamas on, I can blow dry her hair right here. And I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. My mom's who keeps sunscreen in the kitchen. Well, the kid's eating breakfast, I can slather on the sunscreen. I was like, oh, great. So sometimes it's a little counterintuitive. It's about picking a place that works and keeping it there.
Yes. And I cannot let you go without asking this question. It's completely self-serving, but I cannot be the only woman in America that has this. So what do you do when you're married to somebody who's so very different? Because I had said, I always tell my kids, don't put it someplace, put it in the same place. That's how we know where things are. And that's why me as the mom home manager, I know where everything is always. And then what starts to happen is they know where all my stuff is. So they go get it because I'm very predictable. However, I'm married to a wonderful man who does have ADHD. So, it's brain-based, but I literally get calls from, like I said earlier, all over the city. Hello, do you have a Todd who lives there? That like one time he had his wallet in the clearance bin at Lowe's. I mean, he had static, So anyway, I've tried, I'm telling you, Tracy, like all kinds of systems, all kinds of things trying to help him, because people with brain-based situations, which is a little different than what you're always dealing with, but it still goes to, I feel like if I can help him, I could help everybody. What do you do when you're married to somebody who has just a completely different organizational style than yourself? Like, do you try to help them?
Yeah. I mean, I deal with families all the time that one, leans on the side of like, one is like, I just want to live in a white room with, one origami plant, or not the plants, origami. And, and so I think it's a couple things. I think it's about communication and finding, this is why we have this system, because I think what happens is sometimes it's very easy to, sort of make one person wrong. Well, you're messy and I'm not, right? You're this and I'm not. And probably people who are perceived as messy have been hearing that their whole life. So they have a lot of shame around it. So it's stepping back and saying, let's put these systems in place to make our lives run better. I'm sure husband doesn't love leaving his wallet all over the place. I'm sure he doesn't love that chaos of, where's my wallet? We got to get out of the house. Where's my wallet? We're on my way to the airport. Like, I think sometimes we start I like to start with clients, like, what's the cost? Like, not knowing, you know, that stress feeling of trying to get out the door and getting everybody all wound up, right? To find what you're looking for. Like, what's that cost every morning? Does that start your day off stressful? You know, once they see the cost and then go, okay, this is why we're putting the systems in place to take care of that. So I think sometimes when it's brain-based, it's almost like you have to find the positive, right? Point of view.
Yes.
Like what's the, I'm not doing this because you're wrong. We're doing this to make our lives run better.
Yes. And I love that.
Yeah. And then also, look, some things it's just a compromise and you're like, that's your closet. You can do what you want with it. You know what I mean? Like, on some ways, like, you just got to give them a space to be messy.
Yes. And, I'm so curious. It's not necessarily along the same lines, but it's sort of about the how we're all same yet different. So obviously you've worked with some celebrity clients. I'm not asking you to ever name names, but do they have all the same problems like the rest of us?
Of course they do. They're humans. They actually, honestly, in a weird way, because they, especially now with social media, they get sent so much free stuff that they almost have more like
swag.
I mean, and everyone wants them to post about their new thing on Instagram. And so you just go in there and you're like, wow. But of course, they're just people, and they're trying to manage it. We're just all doing the best that we can. But yeah, it's the stuff, it's the amount. And that's what I tell people, like, we come by our clutter honestly, like the forces are conspiring against us. It's easy to shop. It's easy to buy. It's about a level of consciousness.
Yes. And conditioning. I mean, if you think, especially those of us that grew up in the age of consumerism, some of the, I'm certainly not trying to down any brands, but, it's because we're worth it. So you hear these messages over and over and over again, and they start to become part of your living. And so it's like me back with the black tops. Now, I will tell you, it was my birthday. So I got my mom, bless her heart, at 79, my mom still gives me birthday money, which is so sweet.
So cute. That's so cute. But yes, you're exactly right. That's one of the things that I address in the book, Making Space Clutter, which I think is about to be available on Amazon, which is very exciting, is those conditioning things. Oh, I'm worth it. I deserve this, right? I had a hard day. I'm going to buy this cute skirt. Like, is there something else you can do? Is there another way that you can treat yourself or reward yourself? And it's just about an awareness, just opening your mind.
And, shame on me. I know better. I could have invested it. But instead I went, oh, look, this is the little girl in me kicked in. This was from my mom. So I have to go buy something. Now, I could have done a little better than black probably, but.
Well, you can return it,
So we will be watched. So you're saying the book isn't quite out yet?
It's June 4th. It's available. It's drop date is June 4th, and it's going to be available for pre-sale very shortly, which is very exciting. I'm so excited.
Well, I am going to
excited for everyone to read it.
I'm going to be first on the list.
Oh, great.
But I want to make sure everybody knows the title. It is Making Space Clutter Free, the last book of decluttering you'll ever need. And I'll tell you what, Tracy, spending this hour with you, I believe it. I believe this will be the last book, and I'm going to be able to take pictures of my home and my closet and send them to you.
I love it.
And so as we wrap up, we'd love to leave our listeners with one final tip. So either what's the one invention or system or tip that you have that will help everybody get started today on their decluttering?
I said it before and I'm going to underscore it. Instead, especially now with all these sales going on, I want everyone to replace their language. Instead of saying, oh, I need those rain boots that are on sale, or I need that blah, blah, blah. I want you to say, I want it. I want that jacket. And then once you acknowledge that it's a want and not a need, it might stop you from buying it.
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely love that. And I have just a personal story. I just did the exact opposite of what you said. and I just wanted to share that. So I got invited to Florida, which was fabulous. And of course I thought I didn't have anything. So I went, I bought all these clothes. Now, luckily I didn't take the price tags off, but it goes back to, they were all wants. None of them were needs, to your point. So I looked, and so here's the cost. To punctuate your point, I paid more because my suitcase weighed more. So now, of course, with weight, so I went over limit because I had all this stuff I'm lugging, right, that I had to have. I got all the way down there. Guess what? I wore one new item and the rest I just wore what I already had. So then I had to come back and, we as entrepreneurs know what our time is worth. Then I had to drive everything back and return it. Yep. So I am your perfect example of.
Well, I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, this has been a fantastic interview, and people can find me on Facebook. I have a great community there. Tracy_McCubbin, and I look forward to hearing from the listeners.
Yes, and I know you will. And as we close, I really want to thank you for being such a wonderful guest. I want to remind everybody to join our free Smart Women community at joinsmartwomen.com. And in it, you'll get our e-zine, which is Smart Women, Smart Choices. And you'll always know who's going to be on the show. And then you'll get our 31 days of inspiration. And you'll be invited to take Katana's Unlock Your Financial Power course, which is wonderful. That's in the Smart Women's Academy. So be sure to go to joinsmartwomen.com and join us on January 22nd when we talk to Tisha Morris, and she is an author and a clutter interventionist. So you're not going to miss it. So until our next show, go out and live with more purpose, passion, and prosperity. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for joining us here at Smart Women Talk Radio, a place to learn, prosper, and grow. Tune in again next week for another exciting episode of Smart Women on the CTR Network. And remember to live with purpose, passion, and prosperity.